Master's in Manufacturing Engineering. David?
Thank you, Kim. Just a quickie on that, if I may. For those of you who probably don't know about us, the Advanced Design and Manufacturing Institute is a part-time Master of Engineering program, modular format that's a partnership of Toronto, Western, Queens, Waterloo, and McMaster. And we've been around since 2001 and recently joined PEO, at least in affiliate stance, last month, and it is now our administrative home, and we are thrilled to be here. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. And Franklin Holtforster is founder and president of MHPM Project Managers Incorporated. Over the past 20 years, his firm has tackled 4,000 projects valued at more than $5 billion. And among his current and more recent projects are the Canadian Embassy in Kabul, Afghanistan, the restoration of Bluenose II in Lunenburg Harbor, Nova Scotia, and the Richmond Olympic Oval in Vancouver, BC, which of course was site of the speed skating events at the recent Winter Olympics. When asked what MHPM stands for, Franklin is known to deadpan, "Many happy projects managed." And nearly all of the company's 200 plus professional project and program managers have LEED AP credentials, and they encourage every client to incorporate sustainable design into their projects. Franklin earned a Bachelor of Applied Science from the University of Waterloo and 2 years later received his P.Eng designation. He is a member of the National Roundtable on the Environment and the Economy, a recipient of the Order of Honor of Professional Engineers Ontario, and a warden of the Iron Ring, which sounds very cool to someone who doesn't know what that is. Franklin's presentation is entitled "Sustainability is Free." The issue isn't who believes in climate change, he asserts. What matters is that sustainability is an integral component of all building projects. Naysayers who claim that sustainable design costs too much will quickly discover that there is no market for unsustainable facilities, he says. Moreover, he says the cost of operating and maintaining an unsustainable facility rises continually. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Franklin Holtforster.
Good afternoon. That last presentation was a surprise. And so I would like, as a professional engineer, to contrast it with the perspective of an employer of 300 individuals, a person who is, along with many other firms with whom I work, making sustainability an advantage, a means by which we intend to compete in the future, and a way that we can increase the number of professional engineers that we employ, and we think create great careers going forward that will be driven by our ability to innovate and by professional engineers' ability to lead. And so, as an engineer, of course, I like to provide detail. But in this case, I'm told I have 25 minutes. I am particularly proud today to note that the Harvard Business Review has copied my idea. So now I'm credible. A few years ago, I trademarked the expression "sustainability is free" because I felt it was necessary to come up with a different way of seeing the issue so as to give us a different, I hate the word paradigm, but I'll use it a couple times, a paradigm within which to consider the opportunity which is sustainability rather than always standing with other engineers in the defense, defending that which engineers would initiate, defending the analysis that only we could undertake, and the propositions that only we could reasonably advocate. So how could sustainability be free? And I'm going to take you in a direction you don't anticipate, in case you were anticipating anything. That gentleman on the right, W. Edward Deming, he is the father of quality management. After the Second World War, Japan was decimated, and Douglas MacArthur recognized that it was necessary to rebuild Japan's manufacturing base, and they invited an American who had notions about quality control that he thought could change manufacturing and create an incredible continuing advantage for Japan. So he moved to Japan and is credited with basically the Japanese industrial miracle in post-war Japan. Over on the left is a little scale. One of the great challenges that were faced in North America in particular, much of Europe as well, in post-Second World War, is that the notion of quality was that the addition of quality was a cost. Every increment of quality cost money. And a large portion of the focus of manufacturing was, in fact, on producing the cheapest possible product, because every increment of quality would increase the unit cost. Deming was eventually invited to Ford in his 80s to return to the United States to try to lend a hand. But along the way came this fellow. Anybody recognize Philip Crosby? He came out with a book which proved to be revolutionary when he wrote a book called Quality is Free, where he took an engineering perspective, sort of engineering and economics 101, frankly. And he said the problem with North American manufacturing is that it had the wrong perspective on what quality is. And he advocated that you had to take a look at the total cost of quality. And that quality wasn't a cost, but that quality was in fact a feature. It was a characteristic or an attribute which had value. It reduced the returns, it reduced rework, it created customer loyalty, it reduced the cost of selling. Crosby's advocacy for quality came at the same time that the very famous Corvair was on the road. Arguably the reference point, the reference low point for automotive manufacturing in North America. Unsafe at Any Speed, Ralph Nader's famous book that certainly took it to the North American automotive industry in terms of its declining standards. If it ever had standards, I think the way Ralph would have seen it. So the net effect of what Philip Crosby proposed was, as I said, to consider quality and whether or not an infusion of quality was worthwhile, you had to consider the total cost, the total life cycle cost to the enterprise of an increment of quality against the total cost to the same enterprise for the absence of quality. That was, believe it or not, novel. Very novel, in fact. But it created a massive forward movement, which I'm pleased to say the Harvard Business Review now recognizes. When it says the quality story, many industries were transformed, perhaps none more dramatically than the automotive sector, this referring to the history of quality in North America. The seeds of change had been planted earlier in the years after World War II. I'll take credit for this. Made in Japan was not considered a brand asset. By the mid-70s, however, seizing upon the ideas of Edwards Deming and others who stressed quality as a core attribute, this incremental, process-oriented approach fit well with the executives' view on how to drive change to compete effectively, and Japan was winning. Finally, engineers were having their say in terms of their ability to increment quality to the benefit of the bottom line, to the benefit of reducing the total cost or increasing total revenue and leaving behind the net, which is what businesses operate against, to leave behind a net profitability, a net taxable income. This fellow, a great Canadian, although he has relocated, Malcolm Gladwell, the tipping point, speaks of, and I heard somebody mention this actually in the context of, at lunch actually, a new idea is introduced, and Malcolm, every good book is every good business book anyway, I think is like something that could be expressed in a paragraph surrounded by 176 pages of text. And the tipping point was well expressed in the first paragraph of the book, but it took another 200 pages to surround it with enough stuff to make it a book that could sell 4 million copies. An economist many years ago had actually drawn the graph and described, engineers might say that there's a point of inflection in there, but you'd never find that in the book. What did I do? A tipping point. So we have, I actually have to look. We have pioneers and innovators. Who has that iPad? Uh-huh. The person with the iPad is an an early adopter, a pioneer, a person who's prepared to put $695 into something that might fail because they want to be there first. They want whatever advantage it affords, and they will show it to their friends, and I don't know what they do. They probably, the ones that really make it forward, they continue to hold, and those that accumulate their Newton, they put that in the back of the closet and say, well, that one didn't make it, but I innovate, I'm ahead. Early adopters are not quite that ambitious or brave. In comes the early majority. Now, I'm going to challenge you in a while, but where we engineers rest, a late majority, and the politicians. The laggards want to arrive when there's no risk of being wrong, when the opportunity to be at the forefront is past, when the risk is reduced to zero, and therefore it's proposed as public policy, usually after the bus has left the station. My proposition is that I work primarily in the delivery of buildings, and my 300 staff have probably $1.5 or $2 billion worth of buildings under management at any point in time. Our ambition is simply to help clients deliver projects on time, on budget, to realize the scope, the quality, the attributes that they describe, and to incorporate sustainability within that otherwise cost-effective, timely solution. Unsustainable buildings are unacceptable within our marketplace for a range of reasons. Yet I encounter occasionally people whose simple argument is the same one that Philip Crosby encountered before he wrote his book. They cost a bit more money, and my job is to reduce the cost. Unsustainable buildings are no longer economic for the same reasons that an absence of quality is no longer economic, because they can no longer find a home in the marketplace, because they are being outdistanced by their alternatives. We're going to do a quick scan. Some of these are difficult to read. Whoa, could be a faster scan than I thought if I'm not careful. Can I back up? Oh man, if these are flying through at 1 every 0.3 seconds, I'm going to really hurry. I'm not going to try to match exactly what is stated, but I'm trying to show you some compare and contrast. And as you think about the notion that it is necessary for us to defend rather than advocate sustainability, consider the sources of these opinions. That is a corporate ad. The new energy future. It is not the most convenient spot for Shell to occupy. Neither is it the most convenient spot for BP to occupy or Exxon to occupy. When Exxon's last president, who had spent hundreds of millions of dollars vigorously supporting Republicans of the US to deny climate change, was replaced, his successor's first pronouncement was, climate change is real. Because to continue to advocate to the contrary was going to beat the hell out of Exxon's reputation. It was a cost that they could no longer sustain. Now, you might argue that in the background, Exxon is still financing such initiatives, but their CEO is sure growing quiet on the subject. Environmental irresponsibility. Oh, come on. Is that me? I'm a structural engineer. Help me out. Environmental irresponsibility is a social faux pas. This is an interesting one. We are not, ladies accepted, the most youthful group. Yet we're casting about for public policy. As we cast about for public policy, we have to look to what younger people's expectations is of the society that they will grow up in and live in. And environmental irresponsibility is a social faux pas. It is unacceptable to a younger generation to be environmentally irresponsible. When the cost of being that which you would defend for some other economic reason is higher than the value of complying with the prevailing understanding and expectation, you have Philip Crosby's equation. You can no longer afford not to act in a manner that's sustainable. Green leasing from concept to execution. I want to give you, there are several slides here about a few realities you may not consider, but which we are encountering all the time. I should stop touching this, shouldn't I? Oh, come on. That doesn't matter. I'll read you the notes anyway. Let me give you some ideas coming out of my sector. Sustainability payback evidence is irrefutable. LEED is Leadership in Energy and Environment Design. It comes out of the U.S. Green Building Council, which must be electromagnetic, which advocates on behalf of a process of certification of buildings to a sustainable standard. And who is familiar with the LEED mechanism, methodology? Are there any LEED accredited professionals in the building? Way to go. Except that one of them works for me. Okay. Well done, Tariq. Hey, Ralph, where are you? Two of them work for me. Okay. LEED certification increases the sale price by 9%. That's from CoStar in the United States. Having your building certified to the LEED standard provides a building purchaser with an expectation that long-term operating costs will be lower, that interior air quality will be higher, and therefore that the value of the building is 9% higher. I can assure you, we have never spent 9% of capital to obtain LEED certification at any of the standards. Green buildings attract higher rents than conventional ones and also enjoy higher rates of rental growth. There is a glut of empty office space in North America arising from this recent economic downturn, but it's empty of people but still being paid for. There's an expectation that $1 trillion worth of commercial real estate is going to become empty when those leases expire and the companies that occupy them, who have shed so many workers, are not going to renew into the same space. What do you think the chances are for uneconomic buildings to be re-rented in a competitive market where bid and ask prices are not matched and where vacancy rates hit 15 or 20%? I'd say slim. And I think Philip Crosby's equation applied to sustainability will prove itself out. Only the sustainable will survive. Institutional investors, oh, stop it. Okay, Energy Star, no, well, is this me or is this automatic, guys? Autopilot? Okay, blame myself. I can do that. So let's have a look as it keeps on blowing through them. Turner Buildings in the United States did a survey of 1,100 executives and asked them what they expected to accomplish. These are developers. What attributes or what performance enhancements they thought they would find if they were to incorporate sustainability or otherwise. Now, I know what everyone wants to go to is how much was the incremental capital and what did you save in operating costs? How about this for a statistic? In buildings that achieved LEED certification at any level, employee absenteeism was dropped by 18%. Is that worth anything to an employer? It's worth a great deal. Because of the use of natural light, much cleaner indoor air, employees get sick less. Whatever the cause is, it doesn't matter. If that translates in a further study that the cost of reduced employee absenteeism is a $5 per square foot advantage. It never costs $5 a square foot to once, let alone annually, to increment the building. And engineers determine if that happens. It's engineers that we rely upon to provide the counsel, provide the life cycle costing, and ultimately provide the designs that yield these improvements. Take a look at, I literally peeled out 100 articles over the course of a year from a variety of sources only to test the notion as to who was saying it. That is, were tenants saying it? Were landlords saying it? Were architects saying it? How about developers who tend to be a taciturn and money-conscious lot? And the developers themselves know it's coming. One of our challenges is that Will Rogers once said, even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just stand there. And it's that characteristic that I fear often governs us, iron ring bearers, engineers, foreign and domestic, in that we let public policy be driven by others because we believe we're on the right track. After all, we're knowledgeable. But unfortunately, we stand on the track and don't recognize that the train will still hit us while constantly claiming we're on the right track. I enjoyed very much watching an exchange of letters to engineering dimensions, where over the course of a period of time, a couple of engineers went at each other over the claims or the substantiation for anthropomorphic causes of global warming. That is indeed an interesting debate, but it will not be solved in letters to the editor in engineering dimensions. And it will not be informed by those letters to the editor at Engineering Dimensions. Where my 300 staff live and where we work in Canada, in the United States, and around the world, the fact or non-fact of global warming no longer matters. I'm respectful of the fact that there is a truth or there isn't out there, but like that X-Files, the truth is out there, but I just don't think I'm going to find it. And the reality is we have to be responsive to an expectation that we will reduce CO2 emissions. That's simply it. We have to reduce the generation of CO2. Buildings consume 40% of energy in North America. We build out millions of square feet a year, and the greatest impact that I can have to reduce CO2 on behalf of my clients, whether they want it for corporate social responsibility, whether they're concerned about a cap and trade system, whether they think they're going to pay for carbon emissions, or whether they believe it's going to make them more competitive in the marketplace. I think those all coexist, and we have the means to make it happen. The question is, are we, and in my case I'm a project manager, are my project managers going to be at the forefront of that, providing the expertise to our clients, or are we going to cede that responsibility and that opportunity to others? Sustainability takes hold. That's the real estate forum. Green Building Council in Australia, it's going to move fast, read quickly. The Green Building Council says it has a higher relative investment return, a 14% ROI. The green is a green and the red is standard. Rotman School of Business. The economists who are absolutely real easygoing folks. Investors are breathless over China's biggest developer of wind farms. China's biggest developer of wind farms is doing an IPO. China. And it is wildly oversubscribed. The IPO is valued at 30 times the prospectus forecast for first year EBITDA. Go out and find an IPO that sold. It was wildly oversubscribed, but they were not permitted to sell anymore, but they could have. Billions more. China recognizes, irrespective of what our North American arguments are, but we don't want to pay a cost because our equation is so simplistic. The Chinese are at the forefront of innovation for several reasons, not the least of which they see it coming on carbon dioxide. They know that while they may be able to argue their arguments in Copenhagen for a while, eventually it comes home to roost for them as well. And furthermore, there is not an inexhaustible supply of hydrocarbons. They are looking at alternatives. Their air is filthy, and the people won't tolerate it forever. The equation is true in China. It is at least as true here. How green will save us. 2009 Harvard Business Review. Why sustainability is now the key driver of innovation. What goes up must cost must come down. You couldn't see the bottom, but that was another oil company. Tell you what, I'm going to have to learn that slide transition feature in PowerPoint. Oh, we're back to my buddy. If Philip Crosby, now, these years later, right on time, I think his next book would be Sustainability is Free. How to achieve sustainability so that it becomes a source of business profit. By the way, that's the sentence that appears in the subheading to Quality is Free. I encourage engineers in a public policy context not to be the means of implementation, which is unfortunately how so many speakers in referring to us as a collective regard us. We are the means by which we will achieve other people's objectives. I believe that we are in an age of change, transformative change, where sustainability, and a large portion of it, needs to be advocated and owned by us collectively, where we are the advocates for both an economic future that is responsive to the opportunity that is sustainability, and where we realize an expectation, a broader expectation of society, where people are ready to concede our scientific wherewithal. But we have to seize the fact of the opportunity and get up to it and out in front of it as advocates. And yes, by the way, that makes us more relevant. It makes us better paid. It ensures there are more of us with good livelihoods within our profession and fewer who abandon it. So my equation, profit equals the net profit. The contribution to profit is the net benefit of sustainability minus the cost of sustainability. I have 153 LEED accredited professionals in my organization. 5 years ago, I said to all our staff, if you want to continue to be a project manager in the future, you have to provide leadership for our clients. We did not intend to abdicate to architects or to abdicate to economic consultants or to anyone else the leadership role in realizing sustainability in the buildings that we deliver. We get paid to take that leadership role. We get paid well. We have here a National Director of Sustainability who provides counsel to our clients on how they can realize sustainability in their existing infrastructure, in their buildings, in their future projects across a program or portfolio of work. It's a reality of pay now or pay later, as it was with quality. You either incorporate sustainability now. I'm going to be done. It's only 27. I had until 2:30. Projects are delivered within 3 constraints. The historical constraints that an engineer knows are scope, cost, and schedule. It's a 3-legged stool. You know, it's the lowest number of legs that any object can have and remain stable. Right, engineers? So, we've lived with that for a long time. Now, what I hear, and has been the case for a number of years, is, well, we're going to tack on sustainability. We're going to add sustainability to the scope. It's another quality criteria. We'll tack it on there. Could you please give me something sustainable at the same time? But it's not that way. Sustainability is a 4th leg on the stool. The expectation to realize sustainability is a 4th constraint. It's a 4th requirement. It exists along with the other 3, and our clients expect us to take them there. And we, since we do not do the engineering design, we are project managers. We stick to our knitting. We nurture, cajole, and kick engineers to do good work. So, it's time to lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way, in my opinion, for us as a profession. Okay? You could all be on the right track. There could be 70,000 engineers in Ontario who think they're on the right track, but I can assure you, we will get run over if we just sit there. And so I'm delighted to advocate, and advocate from the position of I made sustainability a profitable advantage for the business, and I advocate and provide expertise that makes it a profitable advantage for our clients. I would like to encourage, in the context of public policy in Ontario, that we need to, as engineers, advocate for those initiatives in the public policy forum that will make sustainability an advantage for Ontarians, and one that we will take responsibility to deliver on. And I thank you very much for indulging me, my hectoring.
Okay, Franklin, thank you very much for an interesting and entertaining perspective on the importance of building sustainability, the concept that sustainability is essentially free, and the role of engineers and engineering policy in that process. I was particularly taken by the comment that environmental unsustainability is unacceptable to the younger generation, and speaking from my own kids' perspective, I think that is very much the case, and a message for all of us. So thank you for sharing with us today.
Very much. Very well.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Franklin. And just as we're progressing on the PEO building, our first phase of the PEO building, we'll be looking at LEED Silver CI interiors. Next phase is LEED Gold, the interiors with certification, and then the ultimate is actually that we end up with the LEED Platinum for the existing building operations and maintenance, and that's kind of the longer term goal that we're working through. So very familiar with certainly all the LEED activities. At this time, we're going to have our little 20-minute coffee break, And we have the 3 sessions. Women in Engineering is in this room. Engineering Leadership is in the room over in the far corner. And the student essay competition is upstairs. Just before we break for it, I just want to take, this is the last opportunity that we're all together. And I'd really just like if we could thank Jana Leviston and her staff, Catherine and Josie from the center, and the PEO staff who's been working to manage it, Irina and Sharon out of the desk. Maybe we give them a little round of applause for their hard work. So, please enjoy your coffee break and head off your sessions. And from those sessions, I hope everyone's had a good day. You'll be getting an online survey after your sessions, and we welcome all your feedback. Thank you very much.